The film opens with a chilling scene. A masked figure, cloaked in a leather jacket, lurks in the shadows. His objective? A young woman, unsuspecting as she receives her dinner from a delivery agent. The masked man, patient and methodical, waits for the opportune moment. With a silent, calculated stride, he infiltrates her apartment. The woman, sensing an unseen presence, turns to confront her intruder. Fear grips her as she realizes the danger she's in. A desperate attempt to escape is met with ruthless force. The masked man overpowers her, binding her limbs and suffocating her with a plastic bag. In a final act of macabre, he decapitates her lifeless body and casts her head into a nearby goalpost, and sets her body on fire. A year has passed since this horrific crime, yet the police remain baffled. The killer's identity remains mystery. The city, once peaceful, now lives in fear as the masked man continues his reign of terror, each new victim a testament to his twisted desires. Our story shifts to Swapna, a vibrant young woman with a passion for gaming who currently works as a gaming designer. She's a solitary figure, living alone with a devoted maid who treats her like a daughter. The maid, Kalama, hears the doorbell and sees the electrician she called to fix the generator. Inside her room, Swapna is engrossed in her sketches when Kalama enters to clean the room in preparation for the new year. Swapna protests, insisting she can clean the room herself. Suddenly, she feels a sharp pain in the tattooed area. She rushes to pour cold water on it to soothe the discomfort. Kalama suggests applying oil to the tattoo. The next morning, Swapna wakes up on the couch after a night of gaming. She immediately starts playing again. Kalama scolds her and urges her to get ready for the day. After her shower, she ventures inside the storage room to retrieve the nail cutter. But suddenly she feels suffocated because the room is pitch black and she is scared of dark. Then she calls Kalama and scolds her for not changing the bulb. Unfazed, Kalama clutches her hand and reassures her it's all right. But the darkness, coupled with Swapna's anxiety, proves too much to bear. A panic attack grips her, leaving her breathless and terrified. Later, they meet with the family therapist, who Swapna has been seeing for a year now. The doctor informs her that she is having an anniversary reaction and adds, this happens when our body reacts to traumatic events that happen in one's life. Since New Year Eve is just around the corner, and around this time, a year ago, Swapna suffered a traumatic experience, which is later on explained in the story. The doctor says it is natural for her to feel anxious. Since Swapna is afraid of the dark, the doctor recommends VR therapy. Each level of the VR experience will gradually decrease the amount of light, allowing her to confront her fear in a controlled environment. The doctor asks Kalama to wait outside during this part of the session. At level 1, Swapna feels comfortable. However, by level 2, she starts to feel anxious. As the darkness intensifies at level 3, she begins to breathe heavily. The doctor encourages her, noting that she has progressed further than her previous session, where she only reached level 2. Despite the encouragement, Swapna screams and removes the VR headset. After the session, the doctor suggests that talking to her parents might be beneficial. However, Swapna feels betrayed by them and has completely cut off communication. She has no intention of reconnecting. At home, as Swapna drifts off to sleep, a fragmented memory surfaces. She recalls getting a tattoo and seeing a woman hanging a picture of a girl and the woman smiling at her. Startled, she awakens to a pitch-black room. Frantically, she fumbles for the light switch, stumbling over a carpet and crashing into a mirror, cutting her elbow. After cleaning the wound, Kalama applies a bandage the next morning. Meanwhile, the news reports on a series of gruesome murders. The killer, responsible for the brutal death of Amutha a year ago, which we saw earlier on in the film, remains elusive. The killer targets victims based on the tattoos and who lives alone. As Swapna listens to the news, a sharp pain shoots through her tattoo. Exhausted by the persistent pain, Swapna decides to consult Varsha, the tattoo artist whom she gotten a tattoo from. She explains the stinging sensation and inquires if it could be an infection. Varsha assures her that an infection would have caused an immediate reaction. As Swapna prepares to leave, Varsha stops her, revealing a disturbing truth. She explains a recent trend where the ashes of deceased loved ones are mixed with tattoo ink, allowing the living to feel closer to the departed. However, a tragic mix-up occurred a year ago, resulting in Swapna's tattoo being inked with the ashes of an unknown person. Varsha apologizes profusely for the unintentional act. Swapna, furious and betrayed, lashes out at Varsha and storms out of the shop. Back home, she shares the shocking revelation with Kalama. Kalama, trying to comfort her, reminds her that the man who caused her suffering is now behind bars. However, Swapna's anger intensifies. She blames the tattoo for her misfortunes, claiming that her life took a turn for the worse after getting it. She confides in Kalama that she can no longer sleep in the dark, as it feels like someone is touching her. A flashback reveals the horrifying truth. A year ago, on New Year's Eve, Swapna had gone out to get her tattoo. As she was returning home, she was abducted and brutally assaulted by a man who whispered, "Happy New Year," into her ear. When she is about to cut her wrist, the tattooed area becomes fiery red, and she can't bear the agony. So, she books an appointment for laser tattoo removal, but she keeps feeling intense pain whenever they try to get rid of the tattoo. So she gives up and goes to a nearby coffee shop to grab a coffee, where she feels the lustful eyes of two men, and appalled to find out that those men are watching her video of getting assaulted, which seems to have gone viral. She hurriedly leaves the restaurant, and with a daze she remembers her parents blaming her for going out and getting a tattoo, which ultimately put a target on her. She decides to end her life. Just then, the lights go out and she gets scared, so she opens the door, where Kalama comes inside and comforts her and spots the sari fashioned as a rope. The next morning, they visit the hospital for Swapna's therapy session. Kalama reveals that her parents have reached out, mentioning a video. Before Kalama can elaborate, Swapna bolts out of the room and leaps from the 3-story building. Miraculously, she survives, though her leg requires extensive healing. Weeks later, on New Year's Eve, a sense of hope begins to emerge, as she applies a bandage over her tattoo to conceal them. A woman by the name of Dr. Reena arrives with Varsha, the tattoo artist, to visit Swapna. She tells Swapna about her cheerful daughter Amutha, a 3-time cancer survivor and a social activist for cancer patients who became an unfortunate victim of a serial killer. She also reveals that she had gotten a tattoo in her daughter's memory with her ashes so she can be with her all the time, but unfortunately, it got mixed up with Swapna's tattoo. Swapna removes the band-aid and holds out her hand. Reena kisses the tattoo affectionately, and Reena gives a letter she wrote for her daughter the first time she got diagnosed with cancer, and tells her to have it and encourages Swapna, saying that her daughter is with her in the form of tattoo, and will want her to fight no matter what the outcome is. Swapna cancels the laser tattoo removal appointment. At night, she tells Kalama that she wants to see her parents tomorrow and asks her to inform them. She also gives Kalama a knife to cut an apple for her. Outside, the serial killer has a photograph of Swapna, focusing on her distinctive tattoo. Swapna suddenly wakes up and switches on the light. She notices it's 11 p.m., and the new year is just an hour away. She hears a noise and asks Kalama to check it out. Kalama peeks through the curtain, sees nothing, and is about to leave. However, she notices an empty glass and opens the door, only to be attacked by the killer. Determined to investigate, Swapna gets into her wheelchair. She hears a noise upstairs and calls out Kalama's name, but there's no response. Closing the door, she looks through the window and sees Kalama's lifeless body in the swing, her head resting on the windowsill. She reaches for her phone to call the police, but suddenly all the lights go out. Panicked, Swapna tries to get out of the door but slips and falls. Crawling towards the hall, she notices something horrifying. Instead of her usual single tattoo, she now has 3. Before she can react, the killer strikes again, beheading her without mercy. She wakes up again, turns on the lights, and notices 2 tattoos instead of 3. A noise jolts her, and she yells at Kalama not to go outside to investigate. Ignoring Swapna's warning, Kalama ventures outside. Swapna, in a desperate attempt to stop her, throws a glass to distract. Kalama rushes back inside, concerned for Swapna. Together, they hear a heavy noise from above, realizing the killer is trying to break in through a window. Swapna quickly calls the police, and they both retreat to a room for safety. However, their plan is short-lived. As the killer cuts off the power, plunging the room into darkness, fear grips Swapna. Despite her terror, she urges Kalama to stay inside, hoping to survive the ordeal together. But they are forced to come out as the killer throws a bottle with fire, and the room becomes engulfed with fire. They spots the killer, chilling on the sofa. The police have also arrived. The killer kills Kalama, then prevents Swapna from opening the door. The killer throws her down, and she screams at the police, who notices and shoots the killer down. The police rescues her, but Kalama didn't survive. She is taken outside. Just then, she notices another masked man and informs the police about it. The inspector informs his co-worker to take Swapna to a safe place. He goes inside, and Swapna and other police drives away. Swapna notices in the rearview mirror not one masked man but 3 of them, and the one being dead in a wheelchair. In his hand were the heads of the 2 people, Kalama and the police officer. Then she notices the fire and tells him to stop the car. But it was too late. The car exploded. She wakes up for the 3rd time and 1 tattoo on her wrist. She didn't turn on the lights this time so as to not alert the killers, finally conquering her fear. The 3 killers scatter around the house, one standing in front of the house and the second trying to get inside a window. Meanwhile, Swapna calls the police ahead of time and tells them a shortcut so they could reach the house quickly. She tells Kalama that they can either fare this alive or not, but either way, they have to fight. Kalama agrees. To confuse the killers, Swapna shuts down the power. Kalama goes upstairs since they heard noise the first time and figured the second killer is getting inside via window. So she pours the gasoline on him and Swapna throws the candle, which kills him instantly. The police has arrived. When Kalama enters inside, she spots the first killer and he pushes her down the stairs. The 3rd killer is waiting for Swapna downstairs. Then Kalama stabs a knife into his foot. Taking his moment of distraction as her opportunity, she strikes him in his head pretty hard and he dies. The first killer comes strutting down the stairs. Swapna manages to get inside the room, and the killer is recording her every movement. She deliberately makes the mirror shelf fall on her, and takes a shard of glass and waits for a moment to strike him. Sensing this, the killer pushes the shelf harder, and she cries out from pain and drops the glass shard. Just then, when Swapna thought everything was going to end, she sees the reflection of her tattoo on the glass and grabs it, then strikes his neck. The killer dies. The new year begins, where every time she gets anxious, but this time she is happy as she survived a very difficult ordeal, and Kalama also survives. That's the end. Thank you for watching. So we get to know that Amutha, who has beat cancer 3 times. So Swapna gets 3 lives to survive since she got the tattoo made of Amutha's ashes.